So my first video, and I wanna start with something really exciting. The amount of chat options out in the market today, it's actually quite wild, and it's almost, I would say, catching up with the same situation that we have in the video streaming on demand situation. For example, we have Netflix, we have Amazon Prime, we have Apple TV, we have HBO, we have Disney Plus. It's insane. There's a lot, and to pay subscription fee for each, it's not really scalable. It doesn't really work for most of us. And I would say it's the same with us in the AI field. We have Google's Gemini, we have Anthropic's Claude, we have, of course, the most famous ChatGPT from OpenAI, and recently the also breaking headlines, the deepseek model from China. And I think it's really cool for someone enthusiastic about AI to try these models, as well as actually see, okay, what's out there happening to stay up to date while not breaking the wallet, for example, with OpenAI's $200 per month subscription. And as a developer, I think sometimes it's really useful to switch between these models and, okay, leverage Claude for code completion or prototyping something, or maybe leverage the o3-mini model for prototyping something different, a bit more complex. So to quickly show you, for example, I don't want to write a lot of code, but we have this drop down with actually a couple hundred of models, which on the other hand is actually the paradox of choice, right? Like you don't even know which one to pick. But that being said, you can of course toggle and customize in this interface. And I think it's pretty lovely. You want to try the o3-mini? How to be fun. Let's see. Boom, it works. You don't feel like answer? You want to try the Google Gemini Flash that just came out a day ago as of recording? Boom, you just repeat and retry. There you go. It's a really fast model. It's quite impressive. So what is this? It's essentially a knockoff, I would say, an open source version of ChatGPT that everyone nowadays knows. And if we go, it's actually open web UI GitHub. There it is. And we can see the entire package, right? The community is doing an amazing job. And I think it's all packaged in a Docker container. That means that we can just pick it up and run it locally. If you're not really familiar with a Docker, and this is something what we'll need to have for you to run this, either Docker desktop or OrbStack, something really nice that I discovered recently, and something that actually allows me to not use localhost, but actually use something like actual domain, even with an HTTPS. Very lovely, very nice. But I was saying, what is Docker container? Essentially, it's like ability to package the software in like, imagine you put your food into a food box, right? It's a funny example. And you are able to take everything you need there. You don't need to depend on anything external, right? So long as you have that box, you can open and eat it. It's kind of the same situation with the software. As long as you have this software, you can take the container and run it. And Docker is essentially a container standard and a way of running them. And there's a lot of clients that can interact with that containerization technology, with Docker Desktop being one of the most popular ones and OrbStack being an alternative. So personally, I have an OrbStack, so let's go with that and let's start fresh. Okay, so I assume you install either Docker Desktop on our OrbStack, and I'm gonna just bring up a new window here with the VS Code editor, and we're gonna start fresh. And what we're gonna do is actually start by creating a Docker Compose file. We don't have to use Docker Compose, but what I really like about this is we can define as a YAML file, essentially as a file, and we actually only need to run it once, and it's just going to work after we restart our computer, which is really, really nice. So let's call it app, very simple. We need to define image that we need to run, and this is what we actually find it in the repository. If we scroll here down, it's a good idea for you to read. Essentially, we can run it as a container, and we have an open AI API usage only. So amongst other options, you could actually run the AI on your own machine. Let's say you have a powerful Mac or you have a gaming computer with a dedicated GPU card. You could do a lot. But here, it gives a good example on how to run. And we essentially use this command for inspiration. If I could just copyright here for us to see. There we go, image GitHub container registry. It's wonderful. Then we define ports. This ports if you actually use Docker Desktop for environment. I will already done. So the autocomplete is there, extremely helpful. We going to define an API key, which we're going to get from OpenRouter. And instead of writing right here, it's a good practice to put it in .env file, which actually let's just do it here. We're going to create .env file. And then we're going to copy this variable, create equal, and we're going to create in a second. I'm not sure that's a correct autocomplete. Don't try copying it. And then volumes. We're going to define a volume so that when you restart your computer or you restart the ARP stack software, etc., your conversations are persisted, right? So this is all that we need. Super simple, right? We go back to Safari. We go to OpenRouter. This is how I'm actually running. So what OpenRouter is someone built a really nice piece of software. It's of course online. You don't need to download anything. You only need to get an API key. And instead of getting API key from Google, from Anthropic, from Mistral, from OpenAI, you only get one. And it's like an abstraction. It's like a proxy essentially. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go keys and generate one. Demo. I'm going to delete this key right after the video. So don't bother copying it. We go back, we go to .env file, boom, save it. And that's actually all. We open a terminal, we write docker compose up, and that means to start the entire service list. And we're gonna pass an option D, which means to run in the background. So it starts, we also gonna do docker compose logs and follow just to see what's happening. Typically the first time you run, it's gonna download images. It's maybe going to take a couple of moments. It can be an entire gigabyte. I don't remember the entire size. But once it's booting up, yeah, once we see UV running, since it's written in Python, we can go either localhost 3000, which is how you've seen me running this before. I refresh, boom, 3000. I need to log in. But if you're actually running ARP stack, we can pick the domain name. And actually, my mistake not adding it. If you're running ARP stack, there you go. When using ARP stack, you can actually customize the domain name, make it anything you want. I personally have a very short AI.local, but for example, let's copy this one. Let's very quickly stop this. Let's go up. Let's recreate it. Boom. Let's paste this one. And it should come up in a second. Yes, there it is. So first time we get started, we need to register. I'm just going to write my name. I'm going to write an example email. And I'm going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a great account. No emails are sent here, so it really doesn't matter what you write. It's the way system works. You can also host on your server. And boom, that's it. It's that easy, right? All of a sudden, you have all these models, and you can start chatting today. No matter which model. You can also use a lot of free models. For example, when Google is working on some new model prototype, etc. Thinking, it's what they're leveraging, and you don't have to pay anything. Do note that your data might actually be recorded for that and used for training. So do check their respective privacy policy. It's good to know. Otherwise, it's pretty cool. It's just like that. And I think I love the simplicity. Using OpenRouter, it's not more expensive. You have a list of models. You can see what is actually trending, which ones are better. You can experiment. You can write code. You can go to the software and actually add another model, compare with GPT. Also, for example, you can add a recently released Mistral, the only company in Europe that's producing the models. And they were small, might be this one. And for example, I believe if I click edit, send, boom, you can compare the responses, etc. I think it's really easy to set up. You only pay for what you use. And if you use little, you might only pay $5. Of course, if you use a lot, you might pay $100. So at the end of the day, it's also good to be aware of what is really the goal. Maybe subscribing to one of those providers, it's a good idea. Everything has its own pluses and minuses. So